One of the things that has plagued, I think, the industry worldwide is there are no women. So in college, we were a class of 40 people. I don't have photos because I thought it would break the aesthetics of my slide. And there were 40 students in my class, and there were only 5 women. And for the longest time, I didn't actually know why there was a definition of men, women, gay, lesbian. And I think it attributes a lot to how we were brought up and the actual, or maybe my parents, just didn't want me to know that I was a woman. But I think, and that's why I wrote this talk, because it has allowed me and allowed at least the fellow women, or those who identify as women, to actually be in the industry, without class ceilings. And this is not something I actually claimed first. Luna Cruz Javier, she's married now. She is the first known Filipino game developer, and I used to cut my classes so I could go to her class. So I failed my class. But because there was no game development course during my time, which sounds like a long time ago, but I think it is because it's 15 years ago. And so she was talking. She actually made the first game that got internationally recognized from the Philippines, which is Anito. It's like a Diablo hack and slash game. And even then, there were no women, or very few. So this is a question all my male game developer friends keep asking is, where are the women? And there's a lot of women here. There's more women here than in our game industry locally. So we actually did. We actually gathered all the women. So there's like 20 of us, and we asked about this question last year for Indie Festa, and most of them subject this, and I think. My particular generation grew up with the gaming culture being Counter-Strike, and we didn't have Halo because our internet sucked, even up to now. And game development was perceived as a culture for people who cut class so that they could shoot each other, and it became like a bragging rights of who killed somebody with a knife, even though it's a shooting game. And so yeah, and I just found out recently, I think from New Zealand, like it was a tweet by somebody from New Zealand, that Sims apparently is not a game. And I asked people about it. And then they told me that they didn't consider themselves as gamers because they were playing Sims, and this was in a local context. Because of the predefined notion that you have to play, we're a big esports country, so you have to play like Mobile Legends, you have to play Dota. I suck at all those games, and that might be one of the reasons why there are no women going in. So I would like to introduce you to my country. Has anybody been in the Philippines? Hello! How did you find it?
Right? So good.
It was good? Yeah, I toured you! I toured you to my university! Hello! And the traffic is... Chad was telling me yesterday, or earlier today, that your traffic is actually one of our good days. So that's the best that you have. And it's hard to get around my country because you have to either ride planes or boats. So, to give you perspective, the price of my flight going back from Melbourne to the Philippines is the price of flights just going from one city to another in the Philippines. And luckily for me, um, my parents just let me travel for a while, and I decided to just talk to strangers, and then they take me to different islands. So that worked out a while, which is why. And I'm also from the province, so I am not a city girl. I actually like Melbourne because there are no buildings, or there's one there, but like when you go to Manila, it's you rarely see the sun even though it's so high. I like the heat because it doesn't burn, and yeah. And one of the things is that the pre-notion is that Manila or the Philippines in general is a service-oriented country. So even in mainstream media or in like movies, Hollywood, we're almost always portrayed as maids or nurses, which is true because parents tend to force their children. Like I was watching Crazy Rich Asians on the way here, and one of the things is that the Western culture generally says, follow your passion and, do it well and stuff like that. In Asia, you have to follow your parents. And luckily for me, because my mom decided, to marry a white guy, that my stepdad and my dad actually just wanted me to be happy. And one of the things that's actually very close to my heart that people don't know about the Philippines is that we're a very agricultural country. And one of the problems with that is that our poorest people are actually our farmers. So that's something that's very close to my heart. So when you Google us, and please laugh at me with this, because this is a life thing, and laughing at not laughable things is how I go. So we have an ongoing drug war, and I've had friends die because of it, and I'm not gonna laugh about that even though I want to. But this leads to fake news because they're publicizing it as a drug war. But if you go to a certain street in Manila, which I did just the other day, drugs is everywhere. And so it's been a war against the poor and the unsuspecting people. So we're not, which I zoned out. One of our main problems also is fake news. This is a rumor, and I've been trying to find, a credible source for this. But the whole Facebook algorithm with the US, with Trump winning and stuff, that was tested with us apparently. I'm not sure about that. And that's how Duterte, our current president, got into it because in Manila, or in the Philippines, we actually have free Facebook. So Facebook, as long as you have a local SIM card, you can access Facebook regardless. And people couldn't see the pictures, and people actually modified headlines, because this was the time when you posted something on Facebook, you could actually edit the title. And that propagated, which actually led to a lot of, and since they didn't have internet, they couldn't click through it. And that led to a lot of misinformation, and people just generally believe in what they say on face value. So I think the next one is corruption. I think everybody has that. We don't have organized corruption, but what we do have is people just stealing money. and people being okay with it. That's why there's a high chance that the Marcoses could actually get back into power. And that is why we are poor as a nation, and why it was hard for me to get a visa here up until the last minute. And so right now, one of the issues is that because we are poor, we are getting loans from China and selling off our islands. And I think that is because I said that, we don't have classy things, but one of the reasons that most of these things happen is because of toxic masculinity, especially um, from our politicians. And the one thing that didn't have any relation is we always have natural calamities. So the last Thursday there were just rain for like 20 minutes and I got soaked super bad from head to toe and it flooded. So people couldn't go home when people were trying to get home, it would take them 4 hours for a 5 kilometer distance. So, as you can see, progress is backwards. And, that's not laughable. But actually, that might be a good thing for our case. So the reason why I say this is a good thing is because in early 1500s, we didn't have, countries trying to invade us for gold and for spices and stuff like that. And in particular, Filipinas, or the pre-colonial Filipina, is actually a very strong, concept of women that have survived to this day. So I'm gonna compare what there's a particular term in the Philippines called Dalagang Pilipina, which is like a teenage woman. That's the bad translation of it. And Maria Clara is actually a character from Jose Rizal's novel Noli Me Tangere. And she was portrayed as this meek, very obedient girl, and that is what gets thrown away by toxic masculine men in the Philippines. That I have actually been told this, that why aren't you more Maria Clara? And when I know this is recorded, but one of the jokes that my friends say is that you have to be Maria Clara on the streets, but Maria Ozawa on the sheets. And she lives in Manila. Very nice lady. So one of the things that I think has played, I don't know if this is the same in Australia, is we have very different concept of virginity. So to this day, there is this widely spread thing that you have to be a virgin before you get married. But in pre-colonial Philippines, that didn't matter. And in terms of equal rights, we actually have a lot of laws protecting women. Women in the workplace, violence against women. What we don't have is an abortion law. So we actually have the highest rates of abortion in the Philippines because even though it's illegal, a lot of people use it as a way to get out of poverty. And even though we're a highly Catholic nation, and I'm not actually, most of the women that choose to have abortion are women who are married, have 2 to 3 children, and choose abortion because they would rather choose quality of life than be making babies. In pre-colonial Philippines, women were actually more powerful. So we actually had a princess Urduha of Pangasinan who was a very powerful leader, and she made a lot of choices that actually helped Pangasinan prosper. And our first lawmaker was actually Lubluban, so she's also a woman. and which means that in pre-colonial Philippines, financial decisions were only actually valid if a woman signs it or if you deal with a woman. And that's not the case right now. So right now, because of, I mean, like if I go to Japan, nobody's gonna take me seriously just because I'm a woman. And in the Philippines, it's sort of expected that women don't work unless you're a single mom. So that's why when families break up, women actually make up, or single moms actually make up one of the poorest sides of our population. And I don't know how to. This is a very cool word, but I don't know how to pronounce it. So it's primogeniture. Am I saying it right? Geniture. So this actually, I know what it means, I just don't know how to pronounce it. But so in pre-colonial Philippines, the whole thing with royal people or royal families where you have to produce a male heir. So before, the whole colonization and stuff, it's equal. So it was actually distributed equally amongst legitimate children and sometimes illegitimate children depending on what they want. And now, I don't know why we adopted it, but I'm happy that my mom did it. So, yay for me. So, this is actually I took it from an essay by John Manzana. And an American governor said, it didn't say who, but said that in the Philippines, the best Filipino man is a woman. And I think that's actually true. Because I don't want the modern day Maria Clara, I want us to be modern day Filipinas. And at least I could say in the game industry, modern day Filipinas are leaders. Now I know it would be nice if I could put photos of the women here, but they weren't replying and I didn't want to steal their Facebook photos. So, just to give you perspective, the executive director of the local association for game development in the Philippines is Ria Lu. She's one of the first widely received female tabletop game creator. She made something called Tailcraft, which my friends played in college, and it allowed you to make stories using the cards. She's still working in the game industry now and web and game development, and she's actually a really awesome person. She knows Japanese, so that's a plus in my anime weeb fantasy. But I am writing a book about Philippine game history because I think that's that is a problem of our culture, that we don't have written documentation. Everything I told you about the women in pre-colonial Philippines, there are no written accounts of that. And I think it's because when the Spaniards came in 1500 and they decided to kill lapu-lapu, which I still think is a really tasty fish, that they didn't like how women were treated in the Philippines, that we had a lot of power. But the thing is, we're very subversive, so that has actually survived to present day. And so, as I said, I'm writing a book. One of the best game developers I know is Dr. Beatrice. She's gonna kill me with how I pronounce her name. I still don't know how to. Beatrice Lapa. And this is probably the only video I have. Are you bored?
No.
It's okay. You don't have to be nice to me. Oh my god. What? Why is that? Okay. So, this is actually a game she made. The music doesn't matter. I'm sorry, game. I'm sorry. So, wow, she decided that it's all in Filipino. But, so this game is called Adarna, or it's based on, yeah, so everything's in Tagalog. And when she made this game, I think she released it in 2016. It was because one of her required readings is called Ibong Adarna, which when you translate is bird Adarna, or the bird called Adarna. And so Adarna is this woman that is trapped in a bird, and her tears could, save a king or a prince. I don't know, it's been so long ago since I've read the book. But one of the problems that we have, so this is written by Jose de la Cruz, is that all the women characters were just designed or portrayed to be somebody that, that the princess will marry. And so Bea, being the feminist that she is, and I love her, she decided to make this game in the perspective of Maria Blanca, who in the original story was marrying Prince Juan. And so it's an awesome game. I'm sorry, but I think right now it's fully in Filipino. And it's very witty, but I think it's women like her, because she's basically worked at every respectable game company in the Philippines. And it's through her that efforts like these, exist also. So I've closed that because that's time. So what I'm trying to say is that I did say progress for us is backwards. And since I posed a question that, why do we leave without glass ceilings? It's because we make sure they don't actually exist. So I'm gonna say a couple of things, or I'm gonna vague book this just because I want to protect the people who have done it. So there's a local convention. I mean, I know that the whole feminist thing is, very admirable, and it's something that is important in this world, especially for oppressed women, and fighting the patriarchy and ruling the world. But there is a local convention who is pushing for this, especially in the literary world, and they actually asked game developers to be a part of it. But one thing that didn't set right with the women in the game development industry was that they did not allow, so they were inviting women game developers to present their games. And since there are already very few of us, most of these women make games with people of other genders. What they did was they actually just credited this event, just credited the women. So the games, even though they had male game developers or like gay, lesbian, LGBT people working on it, it was just credited to the women. And what I actually really love about how they responded to it is they asked nicely. The organizers didn't listen, so men weren't allowed still in the event. And then they went to me. And then they told me, could you fight these people? So they sent me screenshots of their conversations. And this is actually how I talk in real life. But of course, when you type things online, like I could say bad things right now in this voice, and some people don't pick it up. So that's a pain and a pleasure, because some people don't know that I'm angry also. And so, but the good thing about the internet is they gotta read it. So I messaged them that, celebration of women doesn't mean that you have to exclude men. And I have 5 minutes, okay? And I think that's a good, it's good that you're celebrating women, but it shouldn't be creating divide. So they are now panicked because I told them I will write about it also in local news articles if they don't do anything. So I threatened them, and then they still don't know this is how I talk. So I think they think I'm a scary person, and that's okay. I like instilling fear. So one of the reasons is because this is how how I was brought up. So I think breaking glass ceilings or making sure they don't exist in the first place is starting at home. And home obviously is where your heart, wherever you are. I was about to say where your heart is. That's so cheesy. But so Filipino language is actually very gender neutral. We don't have pronouns. I want to say we're a very person-oriented language because you refer to the person and not necessarily their gender. So I think that contributes a lot to why we don't have a gender divide. And the second one is tricky because I say choose kindness and not compassion. Somebody that came to me and told me like, why don't you speak with more compassion? And I was like, haven't you heard me speak in real life? But resorting to asking for compassion means that by definition you're asking them to pity you or be sympathetic with you, when really people should be kind regardless of whether you dislike somebody. And this is something that even when I don't like a person, or even when I hate them, I actually still do my best to help them just because you give opportunities regardless of how horrible they are as people. Or if you don't like them, because sometimes I just don't like people. And that means, fair treatment at all times. And I think a lot of the problems in life is because we don't have the courage to communicate. And that's something that is learned. So, to summarize it, because I only have 5 minutes, I thought I wasn't gonna last this long. Anger isn't enough. I think feminism is such an admirable thing. I may not be a feminist, or I don't identify as a feminist because I am for humanity in general. But a lot of people use anger and use it as an excuse to be shitty people. And I've seen this happen to some of the people that don't deserve it. Of course, it's one thing when you break the law and you cross the line, but if there is an avenue or if there's a way to change things or to change people's perspective, then you should take that route instead of pushing them into the void. So never take pride in being angry, because I'm gonna be this is not a spoiler, so please don't kill me, but if Daenerys Targaryen were to take the Iron Throne, then she would just burn King's Landing. Because I think that Dany's vision is not snow, that's ashes. Fight me. So, love all, but just a few. This is something my mom taught me. And take what you need. And the last, but don't be greedy. That's a hard thing to learn. It's also very important to speak like me. No, I'm kidding. But speak softly, just because, shouting. Growing up, I thought that I always had to shout for people to listen to me, and sometimes I do. And then, I know I have a mic right now, but even when I shout, people don't listen to me. So I just stare at them until they do. And yeah. So speak softly so people will listen to you. So that's it. Hello. second applause, but thank you. Do you have any questions? Like, how many cats do I have?
How many cats do you have?
I have 8.
Question down the back?
Nobody likes to talk to me. It's fine. Don't you have questions? Like, how many game developers do you have in the Philippines? We have 6,732. Oh, I actually have an example. No, it's 6,700. We have around 50 studios. And yeah. Hello.
Hi, my name's Gemma and I'm half Filipino, so I'm mestiza. And I lived there for a year when I was 4. And also noticed that Spanish colonial influence and toxic masculinity are really, really, really linked.
I think it's because they look gorgeous. So no,
They
it's
think.
not. They think.
I think maybe we might be better. But do you have friends or colleagues or relations, family, friends and relations? Because I know that respect for one's elders in the Philippines is very, very important. Do you ever have you ever had people actually try to dissuade you from pursuing the path that you have pursued? Because I know that, for instance, my mother is Filipino.
Yeah.
She's from Rizal province, and she does not celebrate me pursuing arts related.
I think that's a very normal thing for Philippine parents. Like, my parents know that I will never make money and that I have to find a rich husband to sustain.
Yes, why the rich husband?
But of course, like eventually, it has to be sustainability. But I think it stems back to Asian parents. I think in general want control of their children's lives, and it comes from a good place because after talking to so many people, like for example, since I'm assuming you're based here already, that you have Film Victoria. You have state grants, you have a lot of things that support the arts.
Yes.
So my best friend since high school is actually a really great artist. Her name is Giona Zoleta. And when she was starting, she made art about sex as subversive, which is very taboo in the Philippines.
Yes.
Like we don't talk about sex back home.
And women are expected to not enjoy sex or admit to enjoying it.
Yes, that's also true. And you're essentially resorted to being a slut or being something, even when you're married.
Yes.
But men have certain, like I said, Maria Clara industry. But I think it comes from a good place. Just because realistically, there is very few support in the Philippines for arts. Generally, the successful artists come from privileged families already, and that's why they become successful. So for my friend Giona, she doesn't actually get as much recognition locally. But she's celebrated in Paris, in New York. She actually did residency in Australia. And I admire her because there were times that, she didn't have any money. And it was a matter of, do I eat today or do I buy paint?
Yes.
So it's the same with game development also.
So do you have good support networks, like emotional support networks, people that tell you to keep going and that it's okay for you to keep going?
They forced me to not leave because and this is I've taken a job as like an investment portfolio or manager, and during that time they were like, why don't you just go back to making games? So like my friend and it's my experience. It's not true for a lot of people. But when I told them that I quit just this week, I told them I'm gonna quit game development. I don't want to see your faces anymore. They dragged me and they were like, you're never leaving. And these are like grown men. They're like 40, 50. And the reason why I think battery, nobody cares. But the game development in particular love women and not they want women. So we actually have they don't know this, but we have a very vibrant gay game developer community. And they're not the typical stereotypical gay flamboyant. They're very macho just because I don't know why, but they are, and they're super handsome also. Like I have a crush on 5 of them. but what I'm trying to say is that some of those guys have been my support. Or gays, and I don't know, like it's a matter of mostly when people leave the arts, it's for money, and it's responsibilities and having money and yeah, basically it's just money so don't take it against your mom that she doesn't want you to pursue arts. It's just a heavy ingrained thing in the culture that there's no money there, and I want you to be safe and happy and to be able to do things. And I don't know how that's gonna change actually, because they don't say that because you're a woman. They say it to everybody, regardless. And yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Come back. We need more women.
I think that's all the time we have for questions.
Okay.
Can we have a huge round of applause?